be delivered to him. He was standing at the counter when the suspect approached him, fired his handgun one time, and shot him in the head.
That's Captain Kent Wegener of the L.A. County Sheriff's Office. The deputy reported to be in critical condition. His name hasn't been released yet. Police are saying the shooting was captured on the restaurant's security camera. They're reviewing that footage now and searching for a suspect. Federal safety investigators now probing Monday's crash of a helicopter onto a roof of a New York City skyscraper.
I want to say the most important thing first. There is no indication at this time that this was an act of terror. And there is no ongoing threat to New York City based on all the information we have right now.
That's Mayor Bill de Blasio, who says it appears to be simply a tragic accident. Pilot Tim McCormick died in the crash. He was alone in that helicopter. The chopper burst into flames atop that building just blocks from New York's Times Square. The Justice Department has agreed to turn over some of special counsel Robert Mueller's files to the House Judiciary Committee. This halts the committee's criminal contempt proceedings against Attorney General Barr. But in the afternoon, Congress is expected to approve a resolution to compel the Attorney General to release the complete unredacted Mueller report.
It's civil contempt, meaning that they are going to court. They're going to sue to get them to comply with these subpoenas. Now, the reason this gets so confusing is because some people don't want to call it contempt. Some do. Some Republicans don't want to call it contempt because they don't want to see that the Attorney General would be held in contempt.
Fox's Chad Pergram. President Trump has claimed executive privilege over the report and testimony from his former White House counsel, Don McGahn. This is Fox News.
The sky's the limit with Bank Pacific's secure MyCloud banking. You can access your account 24/7 with your smartphone, your computer, your iPad, or any other tablet. You can pay bills, set up alerts, check your balances, wire transfer money. It's never been easier. Enroll online or come on in and see one of our friendly staff. Digital Life, Digital Solutions. Bank Pacific.
Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender, member FDIC. Viva Bank Pacific.
It's important to have claims process that works for you. At Guahan Insurance Services, we make things simple and convenient. Same door you walk in to purchase your insurance is the same door you open to file your claim. We can't pretend that the car insurance claims process is fun, but we can promise a hassle-free and speedy recovery without any runarounds. For your home, auto, and business insurance, visit us at the Camacho Landmark Center on Marine Corps Drive in Tamuning. Don't forget to like us on Facebook or give us a call at 475-1162 or text 929-SAVE. That's 929-7283.
Missouri's last remaining abortion clinic stays open for now on a judge's order.
A circuit judge in St. Louis has given Missouri's Health and Senior Services Department until June 21st to decide on license renewal for reproductive health services of Planned Parenthood. A status conference is set for that day, 1 week from this Friday. The state has delayed the decision on the renewal, it said, because of health and safety concerns. The license was to expire at the end of May, but the judge kept the clinic open until he could make this ruling. Missouri would become the first state without an abortion clinic if the facility is shut down. Gernal Scott, Fox News.
Mexico mustering National Guard troops at its southern border, part of the deal reached late Friday with the Trump administration to avoid U.S. import tariffs from being imposed. Vice President Mike Pence telling Fox's special report with Brett Baer.
A circuit judge.
Mexico has actually done more to address the crisis on our southern border than Congress has, and it's time for Congress to step up, to provide the resources, and most importantly, Brett, it's time for Congress to work with this president and this administration and reform our asylum laws, close the loopholes that human traffickers are using to entice people to take the long and dangerous journey north.
The president now threatening new tariffs on Chinese goods if China's President Xi skips their scheduled meeting at the G20 summit meeting set for later this month. David Ortiz is back in Boston for medical care a day after authorities say the former Boston Red Sox slugger, affectionately known as Big Papi, was ambushed by a gunman at a bar in his native Dominican Republic. Surgeons have reportedly removed Big Papi's gallbladder and parts of his intestine. In the NBA playoffs, the Golden State Warriors were down by 6 with 2 minutes 30 seconds to play, but they beat the Raptors 106-105 in Game 5 of the NBA Championship Series. Toronto still leads 3-2. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
This is Ronnie. Ronnie is about to break his piggy bank.
Come on, piggy bank.
Ronnie wants to upgrade his smartphone.
And this piggy's gonna help me.
If Ronnie had signed up for GTA's handset payment option, he could have selected a new smartphone with an affordable monthly plan.
I could have what?
Exactly. Sign up for HBO at GTA and don't break the bank.
I'm sorry, Piggy Bank.
Terms and conditions apply. GTA, we start with you.
Hey, it's Mom. Somebody forgot to thaw the chicken, so meet us at Chili's for 2 for $25. Oh, and congratulate your sister for making the basketball team. She's thrilled. Love you. See you at Chili's.
Enjoy 2 full meal combos for $25. An appetizer, 2 mouth-watering entrees like our crispy chicken breast, smoked barbecue quarter leg, or smoked jalapeno cheddar sausage. Served with corn on the cob and french fries. 2 bold combos for $25. A full-on meal deal available nightly for a limited time. Together, we Chili's.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Shall not be infringed. Today I have a piece from Bearing Arms by Tom Knighton, and it's called Constitutionality and the Enforcement of Laws. And Tom says, for most of my time here at Bearing Arms, I've gotten remarkably little criticism. It's kind of like my tenure here at Tall Tales, wouldn't you say, Real Joe Cruz?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I think the only time I was ever criticized was because I wouldn't put the camera on. That's been about it. What criticism I did get, though, tended to be respectful and meant to engender discussion rather than just telling me I'm scum. I've had the same experience here on Tall Tales, yeah. Tom says then, until this week I wrote a story about a man who was sentenced for selling illegal machine guns. Many people took issue with me over this, including a few that blew up my PMs on Facebook to call me everything but a decent human being. It seems I'm a libtard snowflake because I believe laws should be enforced, even if I disagree with those laws. It's a man after my own heart. You see, for all those disgusting attacks, including a few that may have been alluding to violence, no one bothered to ask why I supported the National Firearms Act and felt it was constitutional. I figured go ahead and address that for anyone who may have wondered. I figured I'd go ahead and address that, though, for anyone who may have wondered. I don't. That's right. I think the National Firearms Act is an unconstitutional pile of junk, not worth the paper it's printed on. I want to see the Supreme Court repeal it and all other gun controls and laws in this country, and any decision from the court short of that regarding guns and gun control is, in my mind, an affront to the Constitution. Then why am I willing to see a man be sentenced to 18 months in prison for breaking what I believe to be an unconstitutional law? The answer is that I believe the laws on the books need to be enforced even if they're wrong. It's what we call the rule of law. They need to be enforced even if they're wrong. So I have my own feelings on both cannabis and marijuana, which I've shared with our international radio listening audience on many occasions. I think that the statutory intervention of the national government into what are clearly state matters, that a state matter as to what should and should not be criminalized. But you've heard me say more than once, we shouldn't do it because it's against the law. You've heard me say that, haven't you, Real Joe Cruz?
Yes, sir, but...
Yes, sir, but...
There's a new law, and it says that the right for people to smoke sweet cannabis shall not be infringed.
A new law, a new amendment to the Constitution, huh? Yeah. A well-stupefied population being necessary to a drug state. The right to smoke sweet marijuana or sweet cannabis shall not be infringed. Yeah, I've got to get back on the internet. I try to keep track of what Congress is doing, and some of the stuff. I missed that one, Real Joe Cruz. I'll take another look. Okay. I believe that the laws on books need to be enforced even if they're wrong. They need to be enforced until they're no longer on the books. By arguing that unconstitutional laws shouldn't be followed, an argument I understand completely, you open the door for people to make that same argument about any number of other subjects. Some might make the case that the Constitution doesn't explicitly give the government power over immigration. It's only naturalization. So immigration laws should be ignored. Certainly not the way I feel. The same can be said of drug laws. In fact, you could probably find a whole lot of laws that someone thinks that are unconstitutional that you happen to agree with. By taking a position of believing laws I disagree with should be enforced, I can't be hit with hypocrisy charges when I blast someone for supporting people ignoring laws they think are constitutional. In my line of work, it matters. Mine too. Yeah, and I've talked before about the dangers of being results-oriented, saying, well, yeah, I think the court is really screwy, but I really like the result, like Bush versus Gore. I wanted Bush to be the president of the United States, but the Supreme Court did a horrible thing. When they elected him the president of the United States instead of leaving that to the Congress. Does the fact that we, private law-abiding citizens, are essentially barred from owning machine guns without our master's permission bother me? Oh, you'd better believe it. I don't even like having to fill out Form 4473 to buy a gun, for crying out loud. We are citizens, not subjects, so we should be able to buy any weapon we want. Hell, a law-abiding citizen with a rocket launcher is a threat to no one, but a violent man with a rock is still a danger to everyone. We should be free to buy what we want so long as we have the money. But I'm not going to cry because someone who built a machine gun in his backyard, knowing it was against the law, went out and tried to sell them and got busted by the ATF. I'm fully capable of being fine with his arrest. That brand of stupid should be penalized anyhow. While still wanting the law, he's guilty of breaking repealed. That's because it's true. So the moral here from this sermon is, if it is the law, if it's properly enacted, we need to comply with it, even if we think it's wrong, even if we think it's unconstitutional. How many times did I say that about District of Columbia versus Heller? I thought Mr. Justice Antonin Scalia really screwed up when he wrote the opinion by overlooking the words "a well-regulated militia." But I also said at the end of that diatribe, every time, I also said, but it is a decision of the Supreme Court. It's the law of the land. We got to follow it. Okay, so much for the Second Amendment portion of the program. Next, I go to Zemi Ikotny. I got to get my blue pencil there. right in front of me. I just couldn't see it. Okay, here we go with the Daily News again. If we were going to name the paper in terms of how often they ran local editorials, we wouldn't call it the Pacific Daily News. We'd call it the Pacific Semi-Weekly News, because that's about how often they run their own editorials. Today, we have this. Healthcare costs forced me into bankruptcy. And it's Sophia A. Nelson, special to USA Today. That's what passes for the editorial today. So I'm not going to say I'm running out of patience, but here's what you get. You can pass this along to Sophia. A big goose egg, Daily News. You got to do better than this. You know, this isn't even an editorial from USA Today. Even USA Today is too lazy to do an editorial, so they take something from Sophia A. Nelson that has really broad impact. She's talking about her own bankruptcy. Yeah, you can sit around and listen to stories like this all day long, right? So that's the Daily News. Okay, and we come to the Post. The Post is a little bit almost philosophical today. It's not always easy looking beyond the surface, but it's worth it. We forget sometimes that the neighbors who participated in a fair that celebrated our Pacific Island cultures are from the islands of compact nations. Now, the word compact is not capitalized, so I guess it means, you know, a compact nation would be a really small country. You know, like Liechtenstein is a small country.
Like dense.
Compact? Compact, yeah. Yeah. Liechtenstein is a compact country. Andorra is a compact country. Vatican City, 106 acres. It's a really, really compact country. Yeah. So our Pacific Island cultures are from the islands of compact nations. So I don't know. Maybe Switzerland has some island colonies out here somewhere. Switzerland is kind of a compact nation. Okay, there's an old radio sounder from the late 1990s or early 2000s that asked and answered the question, quote, "Do you think pressing buttons is easy?" The question was followed by a short explosion and then a response, "It's not easy." For those who don't recall it or are too young to remember, it was said in a Filipino accent. And for a while, it became a phrase that many would tease each other with. Teasing? Whoa! You can't tease people nowadays.
You can, and I do a lot of button pressing in here, so I'm a little offended.
Yeah.
Slightly triggered.
Yeah. You're probably looking for a safe place in there, right?
It's difficult pushing buttons, sir.
Yeah. And people shouldn't underestimate the difficulty of pushing buttons, right, Real Joe Cruz? Especially at the right time. Like, you got to hit that Semiyakutney button just at exactly the right time. For those who don't recall it or are too young to remember, it was said in a Filipino accent, and for a while it became a phrase that many would tease each other with. It was, in its own way, a celebration of the diversity that created our beautiful island. We were able to look at our differences and laugh them off because we knew that was only skin deep, no matter how thick the accent or how dark or light the skin tone. Just recently, Guam celebrated the diversity of our small island community and our larger Pacific Island region with the Guam Micronesia Island Fair. Great job to the Guam Visitors Bureau and everyone who had a hand in organizing it, and all those who participated as vendors and performers. These events are an example of how a melting pot of cultures can build a strong community that includes a thriving business sector and a government that can look beyond the origin of our last names or the color of our skin and see the commonalities we share as members of the, guess which race, Real Joe Cruz?
Micronesians?
The human race.
Oh.
Uh-huh.
Sorry.
Yeah. There are times when, because of the harmful actions of a few, that the negative side of human nature arises. Following the machete attacks in Manguilo, there were many angry and hurtful comments made about Micronesians. The commenters either chose to ignore or were completely unaware that there are many more Micronesians living on Guam who are law-abiding and contributing members to our island home than there are lawbreakers. Yeah, it's always kind of the squeaky wheel that gets the grease, right? We forgot sometimes that the neighbors who participated in a fair that celebrated our Pacific Island cultures are from the islands of compact nations. Well, I suppose in a way Palau is kind of a compact nation, right? Bravo to those who in a sometimes volatile world of social media spoke out to remind everyone of the fact that we are all people living on this island and trying to make a living. Yeah, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make a living. Those who decide not to follow the rules and laws that govern our society are not representative of an entire ethnic race of people. Rather, they are the exception to those who are also just trying to raise a family in peace and prosperity. And that's not always easy to remember, especially when we're frightened by a specific event or tragedy and worried about our children. It's not always easy to be calm and open-minded and remember that there are more things that we have in common than not. In fact, it can sometimes take quite a bit of effort. But isn't it worth it? Well, today is one of those days when I'm going to mark the editorials. Remember Mark's rule? No, Mark's, don't try too hard to give that blue star if there isn't any real blue star material. This is not blue star material. It's a nice feel-good piece, right? It probably says something that we should all be reminded of from time to time. But I don't know that I can sink my teeth into it. I don't know that it's edgy. It's topical. So much for Demi Cotney for today. And also, of course, the Post is 1,000 times better than the Daily News because it was written right here on Guam. And it was not written by Sophia A. Nelson. Okay, so from there, we go to the card. And this is what I've got on the card. I've got the Real Joe Cruz versus Merriam-Webster, again. I've got Lou versus pro-lifers. I've got Lou LG versus Mike San Nicolas. That looks like it's going to be a knockdown, drag-out bout. And I've got Marsh versus Magellan. And a second item, a double feature, Marsh versus $400,000. I've got Moylan versus Criminals, Evelyn Duenas versus GRTA. And then if I get there, I'll get into some of the older stuff like Bavacqua Bites the Dog and Red State versus Gillette. But I haven't been getting that far down the calendar much lately, so probably what I read is what you get. Okay, the Real Joe Cruz versus Merriam-Webster. You'll recall that we had a piece dealing with a gentleman and I use that term loosely, a gentleman named Steve Dormer, who was living next to a house that was trash. It had been abandoned. There was raw sewage running out of a pipe that wasn't connected to a septic tank, running out into the yard. The house was full of garbage. There had been homeless people staying there. And Steve Dormer had made several complaints to the mayor. When the Post came out to do a video shoot and a write-up on the story, Robert Hoffman became very interested and said, explained that, this is a problem that there are at least 10 places like that in Sinahanya, and they're all over the island. And what needs to be done is we need to have a law that would, that could be used to fix it. Well, right here in Tall Tales, I gave a short school on the law of public nuisance, which is a tool that perhaps Robert Hoffman could have used, but he didn't. Maybe he will now. And in the process, I asked my ever-faithful companion here, the legendary Real Joe Cruz, about the word dormer. And, if you grow up in the mainland, you see dormers on houses all the time. This is what a dormer looks like. If you look at the roof line of a house that has a peak roof, and then you see these little enclosures sticking out of the peak roof with their own peak roofs and windows, those are called dormers. So I put the Real Joe Cruz to a test. And I said, Real Joe Cruz, do you know what the definition of dormer is? And without batting an eye, the Real Joe Cruz said, it's a person who lives in a dorm. So I went back and I looked up in Merriam-Webster. Merriam-Webster did not have that definition. So the Real Joe Cruz and I are going to write a nasty letter to Merriam-Webster saying, if you're going to have a dictionary, you got to put all the meanings of a word in there.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And if Real Joe Cruz says a dormer is a person that lives in a dorm, then it must be true. So having laid that foundation, I now come to the poet laureate of Tall Tales, Andrew. And this is what Andrew has to offer today. A Real Joe Cruz on-air performer bundling up to keep himself warmer. In his old college life, lots of work, not much strife. It was great having fun as a dormer. Yeah. And while I'm at it, I should have given you a warning. Real Joe Cruz, I know you don't like me talking about you. Talking about yourself, but this time I have to, because this time it's about you. Okay, well, and as luck would have it, there's one about me here, too, that I can't resist, putting aside my pride and my humility for a moment. Tall Bob is a very fine bloke, but he can't tolerate being woke. The politically correct berate and henpeck those who think it's merely a joke. Yeah, right on target. And then remember yesterday, I had something about Speaker Barnes and her introducing a bill to dole out money from $650,000 from the Tourist Attraction Fund to various nonprofits, saying, yeah, well, I can understand that. They'll all come down, the representatives of those nonprofits will all come down to the legislature, say really praiseworthy things about Tina Rosa Barnes. Tina will have ample opportunity to virtue signal, and politically it'll be a very nice move that's only going to cost the TAF $650,000. So the Poet Laureate has a limerick based on that, which I will read right after this short break.
Business travel just got easier. Take your data plan with you for only $10 a day to all 17 Data-to-Go destinations. Never worry about additional data roaming charges when you go where your business needs you. The US, China, Thailand, and so much more. Have the assurance you need to check emails, surf the web, and stay connected. Call 688-2677 today to make sure your account is data to go ready. Docomo Pacific. Better together.
Experience the Take Care difference. Take Care members can count on accessing a high-quality, credentialed network of on-island providers, including the convenient one-stop FHP Health Center and Urgent Care, access to an extensive off-island network of providers, and the island's largest offering of free fitness classes and health education programs. You can count on Take Care to deliver comprehensive, accredited insurance coverage and quality health care when and where you need it. Take Care. Our island, your health plan. Learn more at takecareasia.com. We now return to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, soaring over the confusion with his superpowers of truth. Call 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
Yeah, so here's Andrew's limerick on Barnes's bill to order the Tourist Attraction Fund to give $650,000 away. It goes like this. Speaker Barnes quivers and tingles at the sound of the clangs and jingles of TAF cash. Oh my, what a stash to dole out as jolly Kris Kringle. You're right on, Andrew. Very good. Tall Tales is your full-service radio station, of course, with backup coming from the Tall Tales think tank, composed of some really, really smart, articulate, on-the-ball people. Our own poet laureate, not to mention the Tall Tales Truth Posse out there in international radio land, always looking for important items to cast before the Tall Tales international radio listening audience. So it's no wonder the Tall Tales is the top-rated FM radio talk show in the Western Pacific. Okay, next I've got Lou Leon Guerrero versus pro-lifers, and this was on the calendar yesterday. And the thrust of this story is that there's a lot of media coverage for Lou Leon Guerrero, who is trying to entice doctors, abortionist doctors, to come to Guam to perform abortions, because we don't have an abortionist on island now. So our Governor Lou is, according to these mainland papers, attempting to coax mainland abortionists to come here so we can have at least an abortionist here on island. And none of our four media outlets covered this story at all. Nothing in either of the two local papers, nothing on either of the two TV stations, causing me to speculate in my usual suspicious fashion. So what, Lou doesn't want us to know that she's off-island recruiting abortionists? Because she knows that wouldn't sit very well with the anti-abortion folks here on the island? Who might even take some sort of step to discourage people from coming? Is that the reason that there was no local coverage of that? Just kind of trying to sneak it in under the radar? Well, I figured after, you know, the sneaky play by the Governor Lou became publicly known, as made known right here on Tall Tales and a couple of other places, we would see something in the local media, that Lou would send out a release to the local media, or there'd be some local media coverage. So, Real Joe Cruz, you know what the local media did?
Sir, it's not what they did, it's what they didn't do.
Yeah, they didn't cover it. They didn't say boo about it, right?
Yep.
There must be a lot of Sherlock Holmes fans out there in the media.
I'm sure there are, sir.
It's not what the dog did, my dear Watson. It's what the dog didn't do. Yeah. Okay, the next we've got San Nicolas versus Lou Leon Guerrero. And I would say, you know, oftentimes if you watch a professional boxing match on TV, there is a spotlight. And if a notable walks into the arena, walks up to his ringside seat, walks up to their ringside seat, the spotlight will follow that notable all the way. And sometimes the spotlight will pan out into the crowd to show you where a movie star is sitting or something like that. So San Nicolas versus Leon Guerrero is potentially about war claims, but it's really not. It's about the spotlight. Where is that spotlight going to shine? And it's gotten a fair amount of media coverage. The last one here is from the PNC. San Nicolas says he wasn't consulted. Adelup says H.R. 1365 still needed. Here's the story. Congressman Michael San Nicolas said his office was not consulted in Governor Leon Guerrero's decision to use local funding for war claims. The governor held a press conference last week. Yeah, you thought she might have mentioned her search for the abortionist in that press conference, but she didn't. A press conference last week announcing her intent to reprioritize local funds to fulfill war claims that have already been adjudicated for survivors of World War II. But San Nicolas said that any work now to change the federal war claim structure that has already been adopted will set the clock back for everyone. He added that at the end of the day, this new initiative from Adelup will result in war claimants getting 2 checks, one from the local government and one from the federal government. Now, those of you who didn't pay much attention to my my little vignette on the Second Amendment, where I talked about, agreeing with the results but not liking the way the result was reached, are probably saying, well, yeah, 2 checks, fine. 2 checks is twice as good as 1 check. I'll take it. I don't care how it happened. But stay tuned. You'll find out that isn't such a good idea. Okay, Tony Babauta, the governor's chief of staff, said Adelup's initiative has no bearing on H.R. 1365, and that, in fact, the governor is supporting the congressman's bill. She just wants to take credit for handing out the checks before Liberation Day. That's another one of my ad libs, yeah. Babauta, in an interview during the mornings with Patty Show on K57. I guess that's another radio show, huh?
Never heard of it, sir.
Yeah. Said H.R. 1365 still needs to pass because the local war claims funding can only cover about $7 million of the estimated 30 to 40 million in Guam war claims. Meanwhile, Speaker Tina Munya Barnes said legislation is already underway to allow the governor to reprioritize local funds to fulfill war claims that have already been adjudicated for survivors of World War II. By drafting legislation in tandem with the administration, Speaker Barnes says some survivors can immediately be paid while at some time opening up access to Section 30 funds for Guams that have been earmarked. And in the process, of course, they'll be able to say, wow, Tina's really looking out for us. Tina really cares about the Madamco because she introduced that bill to get us paid. It's been taking so long. Thank God. Tina and Governor Lou are really looking out for us. Okay, well, let me see if I can tell you what's going on here. Madeline Bordallo was successful in getting a bill through Congress that created a mechanism where a claims commission, a permanent claims commission in D.C., would entertain claims from people who were alive on Guam at the end of World War II, or at the end of the Japanese occupation. I suppose that'd be August 10th. And they could make claims for for forced marches, for scars, for injuries, And there's a mechanism that people who were killed in that process the estates of those people can make a claim. So the claims are submitted, and that tribunal adjudicates the claims and decides whether or not the claim is meritorious. So far, about 300 claims have been adjudicated as meritorious. So those people are going to get a check from the United States Treasury. So the mechanism was that the Claims Commission would notify the Treasury of who the awardees were, and the Treasury would cut the check and send it out to the awardee. Madeline's bill only authorized the creation of this mechanism and set forth the authorization for the amounts to be paid, but it did not appropriate money from the Treasury to pay the war claims. So I'm not going to pull out my Constitution now, but there's a section in Article 1 of the Constitution that said the United States government can only pay money against an appropriation. Can't pay out money just because it's a good idea. So without that language, the commission could still adjudicate claims, but no checks are going to be cut. And, if there are 2,500, 3,000 claims, and we're up to 300 right now, it's going to be a lengthy process. That is assuming that San Nicolas is able to get a bill through the House of Representatives that appropriates, the money, and that the Senate passes the same bill and the president signs it. Now, the interesting thing here is the money that we're talking about appropriating comes from Section 30 funds. So in a sense, we say that it's like we say, I'm owed $10, and I'm going to pay myself that $10 and call it even, as we're paying ourselves with our own money is the way it works. But of course, it's been very, very slow, and there's been a lot of hand-wringing and gnashing of teeth. You just drive down through downtown again, and you roll your window down, you can hear the teeth gnashing as you drive through town. So Lulian Guerrero to the rescue. She says, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take $7 million, most of which is money that we saved because we don't have to reimburse for Medicare expenses because of the statute that was just passed. And we're going to pay that money out to some of the claimants. Okay, well, that's fine. But as San Nicolas says, we're running the risk of two checks. So I suppose that there's somewhere somebody saying, well, what we'll do is when we give a check to the Manamco, we will make them assign their rights to that claim to the government of Guam. We'll have a battery of Philadelphia lawyers fill out papers that are ironclad, something like for every day that you don't do what you're supposed to, we're going to cut off one of your son's fingers. Something with some teeth in it, right? Well, let's assume that that's what they're going to do. Well, the bad news for the claimant is that he's going to wind up, let's say we're talking about a $10,000 award. He's going to wind up paying taxes on $20,000 for the $10,000 that he actually got to keep, because both of those checks are going to be income to the claimant. Well, and maybe we won't do it that way. Maybe we'll ask the feds to do this, that, or the other thing. And San Nicolas is saying, we got a mechanism in place. We've got a huge bureaucracy. We've got faceless bureaucrats who are just doing their jobs. I suspect that they don't much care about what happened here 75 years ago, long before most of them were even born. So anything that comes along that tends to interrupt the routine that they think they've established is going to be throwing a monkey wrench into the works. I think that's kind of the implication of what San Nicolas is saying here. Tony Babauta says that what the governor's going to do has no bearing on H.R. 1365, which is San Nicolas's bill to fix the problem. But I would ask, if I were interviewing Mr. Babauta, first thing I'd ask is, well, how are you going to know who to cut the checks to? Are you going to ask the Claims Commission to send you a list of the names of the people who were awarded and what the amount of the award was? If he did that, you know what the people at the Claims Commission would say, Real Joe Cruz? No, we can't. You know why? Personnel matter. Yeah, and that'd be the end of that. All you got to do is, you don't even need to say it loud and clear like I did. All you need to do is give it, well, that's a personnel matter. That's the end of the story. Personnel matter. You can't even admit the existence of something if it, in fact, is a personnel matter. So I think that, San Nicolas is on, Madeline really screwed up the war claims thing twice. And San Nicolas is doing what he can to straighten it out. If we wanted to be of assistance to him, rather than trying to outshine him, it would probably be much more beneficial if the governor of Guam wrote letters to appropriate people asking them to be of assistance to our representative in Washington. But, when it comes to playing to the nickel seats, there might be a good headline here. So you imagine the scene, July 21. If you're choreographing this, Real Joe Cruz, like we choreographed that big halftime show, if they hired us to choreograph it, you'd have the parade coming down Marine Corps Drive, right? And you'd have a couple of convertibles, several convertibles, with several matamko in the convertibles. You'd pull those convertibles right up in front of the reviewing stand. Lou would come down with a wicker basket with checks in the basket. And there would be someone would stick a microphone in her face and she would say, Jose Guzman, here's your check. I'm so happy that I can give it to you. And then she'd put the microphone in Jose's face. So Diyos mo sila gobyerno, maulig bidamon, right? Yeah. And, of course, we'd have a battery of photographers there to capture it all on video, etc. And we'd keep those videos until 2022, when it's time to vote for governor again. That's the way you and I had choreographed it, right? Yeah. Now, Lou, give her credit. Maybe she's got something more modest in mind. But I don't see how what she's doing is serving the interest of the people who are sitting around waiting for these war claims checks.
I like your plan, sir, but I was kind of imagining her jumping out of a plane and coming down on a parachute. Yeah,
that would work, too. Or maybe rappelling down from a helicopter.
Yeah.
That would work, yeah. Yeah. Kind of in a Wonder Woman costume, maybe?
That'd be sweet.
Yeah, that would work. Okay, so that's that item on the calendar. What is it? About 10 minutes to 5. We're just getting up close here to that big halftime show we have every day. I wonder when our Carl is going to call in and give us a report.
Yeah, I'm waiting.
Is the Carl line open?
The Carl line's open. The Tom line's open.
Wow.
I think the Mike lines are open, and
nobody's calling. What's going on here?
Maybe they're out investigating, sir.
That's possible. Yeah. Okay, so after the break, I go to Marsh versus Magellan.
Let's go for a drive.
Let's take a stroll. Let's gallivant.
Let's go cruising.
We all have different ways to describe how we get up and go in our cars. But whatever you may call it, you can do more of it when you save 6% off your fuel purchases at any Shell station when you use your eligible Bank of Guam Visa and MasterCard credit cards. So stop by any Guam or CNMI Shell station and start saving today. Visit bankofguam.com for more information. Terms and conditions apply. Bank of Guam, the People's Bank. Member FDIC.
In illness and in wellness, Calvo's Select Care is health care that is there for you. That's why over 80% of the Guam medical community places their trust and insures with us. We offer our members wellness and fitness programs for a healthier lifestyle and provide a comprehensive medical network on and off island to help members from unexpected illnesses. Contact Calvo's Select Care today for more information.
So here we are. We've got about 8 minutes before that big halftime show that you all know and love so well. In the meantime, I've got our Carl on the line. Our Carl was given an assignment yesterday, and I expect that he's calling in to report on the completion of his assignment. Correct, our Carl?
Yes, yeah, Bob. I was just looking for a way to fit into the flow of your conversation. I wasn't sure how to fit this in, but since you mentioned my name, I figured, well, I guess I better call.
Okay.
Yeah, yesterday you were talking about some things dealing with the LGBTQ issue, and we kind of, as a side topic, I called up and I brought up about an organization I had heard of, which I wrongly called LAMBLA. I really messed up the name. It's actually called NAMBLA, which I'd heard of many years ago. It's actually a Wikipedia has a pretty good article on it. It says it's a pedophilia and pederasty advocacy organization in the United States. It works to abolish the age of consent laws criminalizing adult sexual involvement with minors and campaigns for the release of men who have been jailed for sexual contacts with minors that did not involve coercion. So it's a kind of an interesting article. I think the the members of NAMBLA over time have kind of spread out to beyond NAMBLA and gone to other online pedophile organizations that is mentioned in this article in Wikipedia about NAMBLA. By the way, NAMBLA stands for North American Man-Boy Love Association. So I just found it interesting. As I brought up yesterday, I believe that's the next frontier. We've seen, the LGBTQ, there's new letters added periodically. I saw one version that was like 16 letters, and there are I've heard there's over 50 different genders that are recognized by the left, by people that are, really study this on college campuses and stuff like that. So I don't think it's a far stretch to say that this is really the next frontier. I'm very sure of that. It's just a matter of time. And the way things are progressing, I think it's going to happen a lot sooner than we think. There are many things I'm seeing that I never thought I'd see in my lifetime. So anyway, that's kind of my little update.
I do remember yesterday that Tim De La Cruz was quoted in the paper on the subject of age, and he said, we should be teaching young children about the LGBTQ manner, because children can be LGBTQ also. So it kind of fits into what you're saying, doesn't it?
Yeah, and personally, as a parent, I've got 4 kids, and as I mentioned yesterday, I really don't think that's why I sent my kids to school. I want them to focus on being equipped to be able to contribute to the marketplace. I went through a lot of angst and searching and questioning about the meaning of life and who am I, and I don't think that's the time really to go in and have an instructor in a position of authority come up to kids and advise them as to what they should do or shouldn't do or think or not think. They have enough issues already, at that age, and I really don't think that's very helpful.
Also, Carl, there's a fine line between educating and indoctrinating.
Yeah, and I believe that a lot of what I've read online about what's going on in as early as kindergarten and elementary school is indoctrination. It's reaching kids when they are the most pliable, they're the most impressionable, especially by authority figures, and forming their views of life and of sexuality. And I think that is a conscious strategy by the left. I don't think it's accidental at all. And I think parents need to be concerned. I brought up an idea to you. I wish we had a list by DOE, a list of textbook titles that are accepted by, our public school system on island that we can go to as parents and look up, type in the ISBN numbers, the interscholastic book numbers, and find the links on Amazon and look at what other people are saying about these books. What are the complaints? What are the negatives that we need to be aware of? I think that is really something that is very needed for parents to be aware of what is being pumped into their children's minds.
Yeah, it would seem to me that schools could concentrate on, as you mentioned yesterday, the 3 R's, traditional subjects, and when it comes to matters of manners and morals, that ought to be the parents' job, not the school's job.
And the irony is, Bob, we have way too many kids that are graduating from school that are poorly equipped to face the marketplace. Many kids can barely read, they can barely write, they have not had their, what Thomas Sowell called their human capital increased in 12 years. So what we see is the resulting homelessness, joblessness, because they are so poorly equipped to face the marketplace and contribute and create value. So, the talk about the minimum wage is actually government trying to repair the damage caused by government, by poor government policies with our kids.
True enough, Carl. It's unfortunate that an awful lot of young people enter the adult world with a grievance mentality and an entitlement expectation that they're just entitled to things because they are.
Yeah, a lot of kids, they leave school and they don't want a job, they want a position, and they want to be CEO, a part-time CEO. But what they're going to find out as they face life is that life doesn't give participation prizes, and it's going to be a huge disappointment. And a lot of it is due to poor government policies, poor educational policies. They've failed at the primary mission we've given them, which is to equip our kids to face the marketplace and create value. They've created a bunch of little protesters.
Well, you're absolutely right, Carl, but I'll tell you what, let's relax and enjoy the big halftime show, okay?
Yes, I'm looking forward to it, Bob. Thank you very much.
Talk to you later.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Congressional Democrats will see more of the Mueller files. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. In an agreement with the Justice Department, House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jerry Nadler says the committee will see some of the supporting documents from the special counsel's report,
including interview notes, first-hand accounts of misconduct, and other critical evidence, and that this material will be made available without delay to members of the committee on both sides of the aisle.
With the agreement, the committee will not seek a contempt of Congress vote against Attorney General Robert Barr, but later today the full House is expected to authorize the filing of a lawsuit to compel the Attorney General to hand over the complete unredacted Mueller report and testimony from former White House counsel Don McGahn. Yesterday, the committee heard from a Watergate-era figure.
Former counsel for President Nixon, John Dean, returned to the House Judiciary Committee for the first time since 1974. Then a key witness in the Watergate investigation.
I accepted the invitation to come here today because I hope I can give a little historical perspective on the Mueller report.
Dean says the special counsel's Russia report provides a roadmap comparing the special counsel's findings to congressional investigations of the Nixon administration.
This committee is now hearing from the 70s, and they want their star witness back.
Top committee Republican Doug Collins says hearing opinions should not be a priority of the panel.
Fox's Jared Halpern on Capitol Hill. Weather or mechanical problems among the possible causes for a fatal helicopter crash on a New York City skyscraper Monday. People who knew pilot Tim McCormick believe he tried to land on that 54-story building to spare the lives of people on the ground. The chopper was destroyed on impact with the building's roof, and McCormick was killed. The National Transportation Safety Board investigating. Like Wall Street before them on Monday, Asian stocks have closed Tuesday higher. Dow futures are up as well, trading about 70 points higher. This is Fox News.
Hey, welcome to this Subway ad for the new club collection. How do you want it?
I'll take a book club.
Absolutely.
So, last week we sunk our teeth into Subway's meaty new release, the Steak Club.
I didn't finish it yet.
Oh, not again, Sandra. This week, it's the new Southwest Chicken Club, also by Subway. No spoilers, but there's a tasty twist.
Jalapeno cheddar bread and guacamole?
Sandra, get out. Subway, make it what you want.
Good ending.
Limited time only at participating restaurants.
If you're driving, chances are you'll need gas soon. And by the growl in your tummy, a trip to the grocery store too. But don't just buy gas and groceries without getting double miles. Instead, apply for the new United credit card from First Hawaiian Bank and start earning double miles towards your next trip. Gas, groceries, getaway. With the new United credit card, apply at FHB.com. First Hawaiian Bank, member FDIC. Equal housing lender. Additional terms, conditions, and restrictions apply.
A new study says fewer people are dying.
The overall death rates are down slightly. Numbers being released today by the National Center for Health Statistics say that death rates for the third quarter of 2018 were lower by a fraction of a percentage point as compared with the same time in 2017, a little more than 0.7%. Death rates due to illnesses such as Alzheimer's, cancer, chronic lung and liver disease, and diabetes were also estimated to be lower, as were for deaths attributed to drug overdose and HIV. Deaths related to firearm injuries remain statistically the same. Eben Brown, Fox News.
An L.A. County Sheriff's deputy critical after being shot in the head at a fast food restaurant Monday night. Police say a man just walked up to the counter and shot the officer in the head. He was not in uniform at the time. Suspect on the loose. They've plucked that sightseeing boat from the Danube River that sank 12 days ago after a collision with a cruise ship. 19 people confirmed dead, most of them Korean tourists. There were 8 others missing, but 4 victims reportedly pulled from that boat as crews brought it to the surface. Fans praying for the recovery of former Red Sox slugger David Ortiz, ambushed by a gunman at a bar in his native Dominican Republic Sunday night. 43-year-old Ortiz has now been transferred to Boston for further medical care. He may have liver damage. With a fierce comeback, the Golden State Warriors beat the Toronto Raptors 106-105 in Game 5 of the NBA playoffs last night, but they've apparently lost forward Kevin Durant. He suffered another injury in the second quarter. Fighting back tears, Warriors president of basketball operations Bob Myers says it's bad.
Kevin had it's an Achilles injury. I don't know the extent of it.
Durant will have an MRI in the morning. Toronto leads that best-of-7 series 3-2. In New York, I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Here
Here at APL, our core values give the company its heart and soul. Whether it's connecting your business with our global network through our newly enhanced service or investing our efforts into giving back to the community, APL is committed to serving you. We humbly honor the opportunity to find innovative solutions for you and your business. To learn more about our enhanced service, call 588-4651 or visit www.apl.com/Guam for more details.
We know too well the inconvenience of not having power after a storm. You worry about the food in the freezer going bad. Nights get hot. It's hard finding comfort when going to sleep. These are realities. But with solar and battery storage from Micronesia Renewable Energy, these realities can be a thing of the past. The solar works during the day and the batteries power your home at night. Call 632-2613 to see how solar plus battery storage can make life a little more convenient. MRE, the smarter choice.
So another big halftime show here at Tall Tales. They seem, I don't know how it happens, but they seem to improve. Every day seems to be a little bit better than the day before, which seems to be almost a scientific impossibility. Once you have perfection, how could it possibly be any better than that? But it seems to happen almost on a daily basis. Okay, so the next item on the card here, I can find the card. It's Marsh versus Magellan and Marsh versus $400,000. Now, I have a predicate to these two items on the card that I may have to read more than once because it seems to be, it's short, but it seems to be rather forgettable. You may recall that last summer, the Chamber of Commerce invited me to give a short speech entitled, "I'm not running for governor, but if I were, this is what I would do." And you remember I said I'd sell the utilities and no more executive security for the governor. You know, a whole laundry list of things that could be done to save money. And at that time I said, this is what I would like to see. And if possible, I would like to see it to be the goal of our entire government. And this is it. An effective, efficient government that provides basic services in accordance with the law on at least a break-even basis. Basic government services. So what are basic government services? Well, police, fire, corrections, certain public health aspects. The way we're set up, it probably means our hospital, schools, and I think that's kind of it. Public entertainment? No. Bread and circuses? No, we're not the Roman Empire. An effective, efficient government that provides basic services in accordance with the rule of law on at least a break-even basis. And there's even a footnote there, and that is that the government must accrue a surplus in some years in order to pay down debt incurred for operational expenditures in past years. So we ought to try to operate on a break-even basis, and if we could do a little better than that, then we'd have some money to start retiring all these bonds that are out there floating, or to first of all pay down whatever deficit the current administration is running, and then to start paying down the bonds, trying to get us back on our fiscal feet. So here's an article that appeared in today's Post 2020 FestPack participants limited to 100. Hawaii will host the 13th Festival of the Pacific Arts and Culture next year, and organizers have set a 100-person limit on each of the 27 participating nations and territories. Competition for selection to the delegation is expected to be intense. Well, yeah, if it means a free trip to Honolulu, I expect it'll be intense. In 2016, when Guam hosted the 12th FestPack celebration, the Guam delegation was 500 strong. Members of the Guam FestPack Planning Task Force joined Acting Governor Josh Tenorio for a press conference Monday to encourage everyone who wants to participate to turn in their applications and supporting materials by the submission deadline, which is 4 p.m. June 28. There's an overwhelming number of people that want to go, Tenorio said, and Tenorio will lead the Guam delegation at the event. Well, of course. The 100-person limit is real tight, and he said he has already suggested to the Hawaii Organizing Committee that they increase the number of allowable delegates. The delegate selection will be made by a panel of reviewers named by the Planning Task Force, which is co-chaired by Department of Chamorro Affairs President Anne Marie Arceo and Senator Kelly Marsh. It's going to be a very fair process, Arceo said. The names of the 100 selected for the Guam delegation is expected to be announced in late August or early September. Marsh has introduced Bill 158-35 to appropriate $400,000 from the Tourist Attraction Fund. Yeah. From the tourist, you remember from Tina Rose Munoz Barnes' attempt to raid the Tourist Attraction Fund that we have an 11% tax on all hotel room rentals that goes into a fund. There's about $40 million in the fund, and it's supposed to be used to increase tourism on Guam so that our tourist industry can make more money. And the more money, of course, participants in the tourist industry make, the more taxes they pay. Not supposed to be a slush fund for paying for stuff that we'd really like to do, but is not essential to that mission. And I don't have it written out as nicely as this effective, efficient government piece, but I would also advance the proposition that it's not appropriate for the government to pay for anyone's recreation unless they pay for everyone's recreation. If you build a tennis court and everybody can come down and play tennis, fine, or a swimming pool or whatever. Remember, we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars sending our soccer team somewhere. That is not an effective, efficient government. That's just subsidizing adult recreation. Okay, so Arceo and Marsh are going to be the co-chairs. Marsh has introduced Bill 158-35 to appropriate $400,000 from the Tourist Attraction Fund to pay for travel and lodging arrangements for the Guam delegation. So we're going to spend $400,000 from the Tourist Attraction Fund to send 100 people to Honolulu. Now, this is really going to increase tourism to Guam, I'm sure. The Guam Visitors Bureau, which controls the Tourist Attraction Fund, has not yet weighed in on its use of its funds. Well, I hope they weigh in, and I hope they don't just say no, I hope they say, hell no. The bill was just introduced last week, said Retta Hamilton, a member of Marsh's staff. Now it's going to committee, and we'll be in touch with GVB this week. Now, in a rational world, wouldn't you have thought that before the bill was introduced, that there had been some communication with the Visitors Bureau, since, after all, it's their money? Tenorio said, I think GVB is going to be protective of their funding source. Well, I hope so. But I don't think this is a very appropriate funding source. He says, but I think this is a very appropriate funding source. Spokesman Yolanda Bordallo said GVB management is working with our board on the issue. No doubt in executive session, right, Real Joe Cruz? Because if you're going to send 100 people to Honolulu and spend $400,000 in the process, what's that called? A personnel matter. You know, if you don't know the answer, that's your fallback, right? If I ask you a question, you don't know the answer, just say, oh, well, Bob, I think that's a personnel matter.
Personnel matter.
Yeah. Okay. This will be brought up at the next board meeting on Thursday. In addition to the $400,000 from the Tourist Attraction Fund proposed by Marsh, Hamilton said 25% of the proceeds from the Guam Micronesia Island Fair and the Guam Coco Road Race will be set aside for the trip. Well, that's nice. That's according to the bill. That's if Marsh's bill passes. Arceo said there would be fundraising efforts throughout the year to augment any additional funds that we may need. Well, I have an idea. If you want to go to Honolulu to participate in this Pacific Arts and Culture Fest Pack, how about if you pay your own way? Why use public money to pay your own way to a junket to Honolulu? It's not going to do anything at all for tourism. The acting governor, now this would be Josh Tenorio, said there are no plans at this time to tap into the general fund for additional funding. Well, that's great. No plans to tap into the general fund. Instead, we'll just tap into the Tourist Attraction Fund. Now, the word that we have to apply here is fungible. Do you know the word fungible, Real Joe Cruz?
I've heard it a few times.
Yeah, let me give you an example. Rice is fungible. If you went to a store and said, I want a sack of rice, you don't care what each individual kernel looks like. You could take a sack of rice and you run into somebody who says, I don't have any rice. You say, I'll tell you what, give me a pan and I'll give you half of mine. And one half is the same as the other. That's an example of fungible, right? Well, money is fungible. So if you take it out of the Tourist Attraction Fund, that means that you got $400,000 that you can't spend on something else, which I would hope would be something else would be something to bring more tourists to Guam. The applications are available for download at the Guam Council of the Arts and Humanities. FestPack is scheduled for June 10 to June 21 and will be held at the Hawaii Convention Center in Honolulu. So I have this bill here. I've got part of the bill. Section 5, the sum of $400,000 is hereby appropriated from the unappropriated, unallocated fund balance of the fiscal 2019 Tourist Attraction Fund to the Guam Visitors Bureau for deposit into the Guam FestPack and Folklife Festival Trust account. Notwithstanding the general provisions of 11 GCA 30107.1, this appropriation shall continue to be available until expended and shall not be subject to any transfer authority of the governor or any intergovernment interfund borrowing for any other purpose. Notwithstanding any other provision of law, in addition to the sum of $400,000 appropriated, Tax revenue due for any period prior to September 20 shall be appropriated from the TAF to GVB. Notwithstanding the general provisions of that section, this appropriation shall continue as long as available. It's a long bill. It's a 7-page bill, and it creates a fund and the mechanism for collecting money from the Cocoa Road Race and all these other things. So we have a visitors bureau that's set up to attract visitors to our island. In other words, to make money. The purpose of the Visitors Bureau and the purpose of the Tourist Attraction Fund is not to create these really nice recreational opportunities for the fortunate 100 that get to go on the junket to Honolulu. So this junket is not approved by Tall Tales, which probably means it ought to be canceled, right? And then the next thing I've got here on the card is Kelly Marsh again. This is called Marsh versus Magellan. And this has been on the card for a while. I just haven't gotten to it. And this deals with Marsh's Bill 59-35. The bill seeks to create a commission which will ensure that Chamorro perspectives are given a respectful place in recognition of the 500th year since the first circumnavigation of the Earth. A number of countries, including Spain, are celebrating the 500th anniversary, accomplished by the Portuguese explorer Ferdinand Magellan and Spanish discoverer Juan Sebastián Elcano. The celebrations will go on until 2022 to promote what some say was the first act of globalization in history. But Marsh Titano says that Guam must be given a special place in this commemoration. Yeah, because we built the ship. No. We no. There were Chamorro crewmen. No. I guess I better read further. Says that Guam should be given a special place in this commemoration and that the Chamorro perspective must be included in all research, discussions, and events related to the commemoration. Does that mean that someone is going to have to go to Spain on the government's nickel? Probably. Bill 5935 provides an opportunity to right a wrong. Of course, you know, remember the grievance society that we live in nowadays. If you don't have a grievance, then you really don't have anything to talk about. Provides an opportunity to right a wrong. Many wrongs, in fact. This is what Marsh is saying. Too many times, those from elsewhere arrived on our shores and gave absolutely no regard for the presence or the rights of Chamorros, as if they didn't count, as if they had no right or claim to Guahan, the senator said. Now, I'm sure that was the case in Magellan when he came in here, right? Later during the hearing, James Moylan stood up and said that although he supports the concept of the bill, he does have a few questions with regard to funding. Make no mistake, I support the bill. I just want a clarification on whether the entities mentioned in the bill, like the University of Guam, will be using their existing resources to provide the support this commission needs without asking for additional funding. In response, Marsh, now she's Marsh Titano. At the beginning of the story, I guess she was Marsh Titano then too, yeah. All right. Marsh Titano said, the University of Guam already has units that can carry out research and outreach for the commission. That is exactly what they're set up to do. They are set up to do research for the community, building up relations with the local, national, and international community, and conducting outreach. Well, then why do we need this commission? We have a lot of facilities, and if we're not fully utilizing them, then it's actually a waste in a sense, the senator said. And the bill passed just the other day. Now, I have the bill here. pretty interesting. Statement, legislative findings and intent. The legislature finds that the Chamorro ancestors arrived in Guam 3,500 or 4,000 or more years ago and thrived, developing a rich culture, language, and life way. That's interesting. As though no other culture would consider itself to be rich. In March 1521, Imanauta Mona, first people, discovered a Spanish expedition in their waters that went on to become the first expedition to have navigated the world. So this just shows how adept the Manauta Mona were when they chose to come and live on a place that would be the water stop for Magellan's circumnavigation of the world. In March 1521, the Manauta Mona discovered a Spanish expedition in their waters that went on to become the first expedition to circumnavigate the world. The legislature finds that the people of Guam have been overlooked, unheard, poorly understood, and under-examined throughout history. So this is a grievance here, right? This is a wrong that has to be righted. And this is the whole basis for identity politics. It's not what's happening now that counts. It's the oppression that the people that are coming to today's events have suffered in the past. And of course, if there's been oppression, you've got to identify the oppressor. So the people of Guam have been overlooked, unheard, poorly understood, and under-examined through history. And that the 500 years since the circumnavigation simultaneously offers the people of Guam an opportunity to tell their story about their experiences in the midst of the first encounter between Pacific Islanders and Westerners. Well, you know, there's an obvious kind of disconnect here. No one's alive from 500 years ago. I don't think. Yeah, probably not. And the only writing that was done by people who came on these ships from Europe. Pigafetta and Fressinet and these other guys. There weren't any Chamorro chroniclers of these events. Now, I suppose that's somebody's fault. That the Chamorros that were here that discovered Magellan in the waters of Guam didn't know how to write and didn't know how to create a written history of what happened. I can't figure out quite maybe it's Magellan's fault. Maybe he should have sent people ahead of his voyage, a couple of years ahead, so that there would be chroniclers available on Guam when he finally got here. But anyhow, that's the reason that we need this commission. Now, this is the makeup of the commission. One representative from the Department of Chamorro Affairs appointed by the Department of Chamorro Affairs President. One representative from y Comisión y Finu Chamorro Jan y Finanaguen y Historia Jan y Lanatla Tautotano. One scholar from the University of Guam appointed by the president of the University of Guam. The UOG president shall appoint an alternate scholar who shall assume the role and responsibility of the first scholar during, get this, during his or her absence. What should it have said?
There.
Yeah, right. One representative appointed by the governor of Guam. One representative from an indigenous-focused or historical nonprofit organization appointed by the Speaker. One representative from the Guam Preservation Trust appointed by the Board of the Guam Preservation Trust. One representative from the Guam Visitors Bureau appointed by GVB Board who is knowledgeable about the interpretation of Guam's history is reflected in the visitor experience. Okay, I'm going to come back after the seventh inning stretch. I hope I can finish this list of the members of this commission before the end of the program.
Your home is one of the most important investments you'll make in your life. At Nanbo Insurance, you can rest easy knowing that you're covered with reliable and affordable homeowners insurance. Nanbo makes it easy to protect what matters the most so you can enjoy the moments that matter the most. With Nanbo, you can also save big when you bundle up and insure your car, home, motorcycle, or business. Enjoy great savings up to 50%. Visit nanbo.com or call 477-9754 for more details.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training every morning on The Ray Gibson Show.
What if there were a set of rules for succeeding in your job and career? Rules that would make you stand out like no other. I'm Jerry Robertson at 7:20 a.m. on The Ray Gibson Show. I'll have that list of rules right here.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Okay, so going down this list of members of this commission, and of course we probably aren't going to be able to find out much about what the commission does. You know why, Real Joe Cruz?
It's a personnel matter, sir.
Exactly, yeah. One mayor appointed by the Mayor's Council of Guam, one representative appointed by the chairperson of the Legislative Committee with oversight of the DCA, one member of the championship team of the Guam Major League. Let's see. One person chosen at random from the streets of Agana on Wednesday night.
That could be me.
Yeah. One radio talk show host producer. I'm just ad-libbing the rest of these, but there's 9 people on this commission. So I guess first thing they're going to do is buy uniforms and set themselves up as a baseball team. Commission members shall serve a term of 3 years commencing with the date of appointment and until successors are appointed and qualified, until the events which recognize the 500th year of the circumnavigation have ended. The legislature is determined to facilitate the dissemination of information about the Chamorro people, including the status of their civilization at the time and their subsequent experiences, including the unfortunate naming of their archipelago of islands as Islas de Ladrones. You know what that means, Real Joe Cruz?
Yes, I do, sir. I speak Spanish.
Yeah.
Español.
Yeah. Yo entiendo español, pero un poco nomás, amigo.
Island of Thieves.
Yeah. All right. Legislature further finds that the governments of Spain, the Republic of the Philippines, and Chile will be engaged in an international recognition of the circumnavigation to include a retracing of the voyage, scholarly conferences, studies, public events, exhibits, cultural exchanges, state visits, agreements, and multinational maritime exchanges in which Chamorro navigation skills and canoe technology should be appropriately displayed and recognized. Yeah, because those canoes no, it was Magellan that circumnavigated. Yeah, I got mixed up there. Legislature finds that the people of Guam should lead and otherwise be involved in these scholarly activities, commemorative events, and displays of activities that showcase Chamorro culture depicted within the context of the historical encounter, and that a commission would help to foster thoughtful examination and rich dialogue about these historical events and its consequences. I just wonder how much this is going to cost and who's going to get to take the junkets. I can see junkets to the Philippines, Chile, and Spain already. It is therefore the intent of the legislature to establish historiata en etnon studion I umalie jan umafana I tautau hidzum jan tautau tano. I wonder if there's a place on there for tautau hidzum. Uno na tautau hidzum. So, guahalistu, no? Yeah, okay. Which shall be devoted to performing the duties and purposes set forth in this act. A provisional commission. I'm missing a page here. Let's see. The commission shall annually elect from among its members a chairperson and a vice chairperson. The chairperson shall preside at all meetings and act as spokesperson and perform other duties as the commission shall direct. Members shall meet at least once a month and in special session as the chairperson may deem necessary. The chairperson shall be counted for a quorum. 5 members shall constitute a quorum, and 5 affirmative votes are required for a transaction of business. All meetings of the commission shall be open to the public as provided by law. Here, Section 4, duties and purposes. Ensure that indigenous narratives and critiques are incorporated into the planning and development of events and materials. Continually study and direct research necessary to organize public programs, develop marketing and education materials, and coordinate other events and logistics around the 5th centennial of the circumnavigation around the world. Now, if it's a circumnavigation around the earth, if it's a circumnavigation of the earth, do you need to say around? I don't think so. Yeah. The commission is to consult and collaborate with the Office of the Governor, the Legislature, the Department of Chamorro Affairs, the University of Guam, the Commission Fino Chamorro, Department of Education, the Mayor's Council of Guam, historical and cultural institutions and organizations, and others in Guam and in the region who may participate, contribute, and collaborate in programs and projects. And here we go. Work with the government of Spain's agencies and museums to ensure Guam's participation and sharing of local displays and materials are presented in other parts of the world. So maybe a trip to Madrid. Madrid's a pretty nice city. Yeah. I don't think, the explorers didn't sail from Madrid. I wonder what port they sailed from. I'll have to look that up. Madrid's in the middle of Spain. It's not a port. I'm going to look that up. Ensure that the people are involved in scholarly activities and various related events and displays of indigenous culture depicted within the context of the historical encounter to help foster thoughtful examination and a rich dialogue about these historical events. It sounds like somebody's term paper, doesn't it? Yeah. I wonder if this is something that...
They got it from the Encyclopedia Britannica or something.
Yeah. I wonder if Marsh handed this in and for her master's degree for her term paper in history or something like that. Develop and submit a biannual report on the plan and schedule for the coordination and execution of programs and projects to the Speaker. Welcome input from the public and promote participation in all events. Yeah, well, I suppose we ought to start a pool to figure out how long it will be before this commission asks Marsh to introduce an appropriation bill, because this commission is going to have money to do all of these things. So that's 2 items on the card there. Marsh versus Magellan, and yeah, how dare that Magellan trying to take all the credit for circumnavigating the world. Magellan and Elcano, they got to share some of the credit there with the people of Guam who have, what was it? Have to share some of the credit there with the people of Guam who have been, this is the best part of the bill here. Overlooked, unheard, poorly understood, and under-examined throughout history. Yeah. Some real grievance legislation there, setting this right, finally, after all these years. Okay, so going from there to the next item on the card, which is Moylan versus criminals. Yeah. Moylan versus criminals. So, you know, Moylan has introduced a bunch of bills. I can't even keep track of them all. I think one of them I might have thought was a good idea, but it seems that, you know, some senators would figure that being a senator would be like going to a target range with a rifle and a telescopic sight. And you aim very carefully for very selected targets. And you don't shoot very often, but every time you shoot, you hit that target right in the bullseye. That's one approach. The other approach is to go to the target range with a sawed-off shotgun and just blast away, because you know all of those pellets flying out there, you're bound to hit something if you fire enough rounds downrange. And if it's a sawed-off shotgun, the wider the pattern of the shot will be, so you're bound to hit something. But I think this time, Senator Moylan actually hit something. And I'm going to kind of borrow a page out of Kelly Marsh's book here in Marsh versus Michelangelo. I'm going to take the credit for what Moylan has introduced here, which I see as a good idea, because maybe he's been listening to Tall Tales. And this is a story that ran in the Post. James Moylan has introduced a bill that would require bail be posted for any suspect accused of criminal sexual conduct, armed robbery, kidnapping, or intent to distribute controlled substances. Individuals accused of these crimes would no longer be eligible for release on personal recognizance, which is release based on the defendant's promise to return to court for the next scheduled hearing without having to post bail. If a suspect charged with any of these the crimes mentioned above, is able to post bail and qualify for release under Bill 160-35, he would be required that he wear an electronic monitoring device and pay for the device himself. It is disturbing to see individuals committing crimes while on pretrial release, states the senator in a release announcing his proposal. We have heard the cries of the community, he said, and Bill 160-35 is a discussion that needs to be placed on the table immediately. Unlike his bill to cut the gross receipts tax, which won't be effective until the 1st of October. Moylan said his staff is working on additional language setting more stringent requirements for those charged with heinous crimes. So I didn't. I've got part of the bill here. It's long because it amends a lot of sections, but the operative portion of it here reads, notwithstanding any other provisions of the law, any person charged with the following crimes shall not qualify for release on own recognizance pursuant to 40.15a of this chapter, and instead shall only qualify for release requirements pursuant to 40.20 of this chapter. So, you know, on two different occasions when people were ranting and raving, judges are too easy. They're letting too many people out. There's too much release on recognizance. They're too easy. And on two different occasions, I took Chapter 40 of 8 GCA and analyzed it and went through it on the air and said, this is the law right now. This is what judges have to pay attention to when people are brought before them for a magistrate hearing. So if you want the judges to toughen up this law. Don't just sit around and kvetch about the judges. So that's exactly what Moylan did here. He took a laundry list of crimes that I think we could all agree to as being serious, and said that no more ROR on those. You got to post bail, and you're going to have to wear one of those ankle bracelets, and you're going to have to pay for the ankle bracelet yourself. So, yeah, I said that, you know, if anybody, the fix belongs to the legislature. The pretrial release stuff is all in Title 8, Chapter 40. And the other thing is somebody needs to look at the criminal code and at the sentencing provisions for some of these crimes and make them stiffer if that's what you want. So Moylan did that. So is the phone ringing there, Real Joe Cruz? I wonder if the phones are operating between here and Moylan's office. Yeah.
They're working, though, sir.
Yeah, his staff is working on it, I think, probably. Yeah. Well, it's good that, you know, the old saying is you can accomplish darn near anything if you don't care who gets the credit, right? So although I deserve the credit, you know, as part of the modesty that I'm so proud of, I'll just say, well, let's give Jim Moylan the credit for this. Because, you know, he listens to Tall Tales, right? Yeah. So good idea. And maybe other senators will take the hint and take a look at the criminal code and do the same thing there. Next item on my card here is Evelyn Duenas versus the Guam Rapid Transit Authority. You might recall Evelyn Duenas has been on the card once before. Evelyn Duenas was the person who was summarily kicked off the paratransit bus by GRTA. And Evelyn has been on the board before. She has testified at the legislature. And I would think it's fair to say that Evelyn has not exactly been a fan of the management of the Guam Rapid Transit Authority. So this story is titled GRTA Board Nominee Defends 2018 Outburst. Just days before her confirmation hearing, a recorded outburst from newly appointed Board Transit Member Authority Evelyn Duenas surfaces. So we've seen this movie before. You know, she's coming on for confirmation, and then all of a sudden this tape, this recording that casts her in a not favorable light, all of a sudden comes out of nowhere. And this is what Evelyn says about it. She says she lost her temper and had an outburst at an August 2017 GRTA meeting. The recording of the meeting and the outburst is making its rounds to the media before Duenas' confirmation hearing Thursday at the legislature. Now, of course, the key question here is, did that recording fall into the hands of Mary Camacho? If you'll remember Mary Camacho and Danny Tydenko's confirmation hearing. Okay, here's some experts. Don't tell me to stop. I had enough of this, she said, directing the board chairman Luis Rivera and others. Don't tell me to stop. Enough of this. You people don't even control this. No, I'm not stopping. Duenas told KUAM News she was livid because a complaint about her was brought before the board in the public comment part of the meeting. She maintains the complaint should have been confidential and routed through the agency's customer service reps. Okay, so we're coming up to the home stretch here. Coming back from the home stretch in just a minute.
So what's the deal? Are you still paying for the right to have your checking account at your bank? Well, at Bank Pacific, we think it's our privilege, not our right. That's why we offer My Green Free Checking, where your monthly maintenance checking fees are zero. That's zero. And it comes with a free Visa check card and monthly green e-statements. My Green Free Checking. Bank Pacific today. Because having you as our customer, that's our privilege.
Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender, FDIC. Viva Bank Pacific.
When it comes to power and performance, nothing compares to Dodge. And right now at Cars Plus in Mighty, you can save thousands on many Dodge vehicles in stock during our Dodge Performance Days. Like a new 2019 Grand Caravan SE, save $4,250, or save $6,150 on a new Durango SXT. Looking for more power? Take home a new Charger SXT Plus today for only $37,689, or save over $7,000 on a new Challenger GT. Get more power and performance at Cars Plus in Mighty during Dodge Performance Days. Cars Plus, driven by you.
So here we are, heading down the home stretch. Churchill Downs, where the fastest horse, the horse first across the finish line is declared the winner, not the horse with the best manners. So talking about manners here, this tape apparently shows, or this recording apparently shows Evelyn with something less than polite manners. Duenas told KM she was livid because a complaint about her was brought before the board in the public comment part of the meeting. She maintains that complaint should have been confidential and routed through the agency's customer service reps. While she is sorry for her outburst, she says she was frustrated because GRTA board allowed her name and the complaint against her, which according to the recording, involved Duenas allegedly threatening her driver to be released publicly. And she says they did it because she has a record of fighting for improved services for transit riders. So if that's the case, maybe it's not too hard to see why someone might want to get that recording of Evelyn losing her temper before senators at her confirmation hearing. Duenas was born with cerebral palsy and has been an advocate for persons with disabilities, serving on many boards and commissions. The word I would use in a training is assertiveness. I took it on that level first from assertive. I went to aggressiveness. You know, it really was not appropriate for me to do, but at the same token, too, it was a lot of frustration, and they just allowed it to continue to happen. I apologize for what I have said, and said shouldn't have gone that far. I left it as water under the bridge, but of course they saw my confirmation at the legislature, and it bothered them, and I guess this is where we are now, she said. Duenas says it's no secret she has rubbed GRTA the wrong way over the years, even drawing a suspension from paratransit last year. But she says she's passionate about improving services, something she says she'll bring to the table if she's confirmed to the Mass Transit Board. I speak up literally, not for me, but for the community as a whole, because I'm familiar with the system. I've been writing for 35 years now, so this is the worst it's ever gotten. Ironically, while we interviewed Duenas, she was told she would have to wait 3 hours to be picked up by GRTA, something she says is an indication transit has not been a GovGuam priority for years. Transit was left on the back burner, and it included many people that have had the authority to make changes but didn't make the changes, she said. Yeah, so I've been at the legislature when Evelyn testified, and I've testified myself, and my testimony is kind of boring because I always say the same thing. We could have a real bus system here. We've got a lot of buses that could be integrated into a single system that could produce enough revenue to subsidize the rides for people like Evelyn. But if you're going to operate a bus system based only on people who can't afford to pay the bus fare, you're not going to have a good system. And that's exactly where we are. And we have a mass transit board, and we had Rick Augustine, a director. We had some powerful, some expensive overhead, and never, ever really accomplished anything. So my answer was, if we can't have a real bus system, then the next best alternative would be to set up a couple of clerks to accommodate people like Evelyn and just reimburse cab fare. If they had to go somewhere, let them call a cab, get a receipt, and reimburse cab fare. If we didn't have to carry the overhead for the board, the director, the paper shufflers, etc., we'd probably come out money ahead that way. So it's pretty understandable why certain people, and I don't know who the certain people would be, but probably the management of GRTA wouldn't want to see Evelyn on that board because she would be outspoken, and she said she would speak up on behalf of the riders, and that's supposed to be the purpose of that board. The commissioner of Tutuhan, or is it Tutuan or Tutuhan? I never know upon which syllable I should put the emphasis. How do you say it, Real Joe Cruz?
Tutuan.
Tutuan, not Tutuhan.
No, I don't
not
say it like that.
Tutuhan.
No, I don't.
Okay, all right. So we'll be following this story, and of course, if Mary Camacho gets a hold of that recording and she reacts to it the same way she reacted to Danny Tydenko's confirmation, Evelyn probably is not going to be a member of the Mass Transit Board. Well, ladies and gentlemen out there in our international radio listening audience, it's been a little slice of heaven this afternoon. Hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. The Real Joe Cruz and I are going to be back tomorrow at 1600, 4 o'clock, for another exciting, informative, educational edition of Tall Tales. Adios.